Hi, everybody. It's November 7th, 2024, and this is the weekly Backdrop Developer Meeting. We get together every week to talk about development priorities and just random things that are happening in the Backdrop issue queue and community. My name is Nate Lampton. I'm Quick Sketch on the internet. I'm core committer and technical lead for the Backdrop project. We've got a pretty good group of folks today, considering we had the time zone change and we're an hour earlier than usual for those that stopped observing daylight savings in the past week. So great to see all the folks that are here. We'll go around the room and do a little introduction of everybody. If you say your name, where you're calling in from, and if you've got any interests to talk about today. So we'll start with Luke because I see he's unmuted, and then we'll go to Tim.
Hey, I'm Luke McCormick, sell ear on all the different places. Recently branded myself as simplifiedrupal.com. Am I allowed to do ads in my intro?
Yeah.
Uh, I'm super excited. I am traveling when Backdrop Live is in New York for my birthday, so I will be able to participate only a little bit. But other than that, I'm in.
Great, thanks, Luke. We'll go Tim, and then we'll go to Steve.
Yeah, I'm not muted, am I?
Nope, you're
Yeah,
good.
good. I can't see the screen. There I am. My name is Tim Erickson. I'm St. Paul Tim. I'm in Deerwood, Minnesota. I am, as I mentioned before we went on the live, I'm kind of doing some last minute prep. I'm going to be talking about the domain access module for Backdrop, which is not yet officially released, but it's very, very, very close during the user group meeting, which will be right after this. So if you're interested in domain access, hang around for that. And the other big thing I'm working on is Backdrop Live, which will be underway 7 days from now. 1 week from now, we'll be starting next a week a little earlier in the day, a week from now, with our something like our 10th or 11th Backdrop Live now. We have the fullest schedule we've ever had in terms of topics. We need to haven't done as much publicity as we would like to have. So anything anybody can do to help with that, please do. Thanks.
Thanks, Tim. Steve, and then Justin.
Yeah, hi, I'm Steve. I'm in South Yorkshire in the UK. I run a small web shop, so to speak, developing websites for customers, as well as modules and things. Tend not to be that active on the meetings due to time differences, but now the clocks have all more or less realigned. It's sort of just gone 7 p.m. here in the UK, so that makes it easier for me to join the groups again. So over to Justin.
Hey, I'm Justin Kaiser. I'm in Muncie, Indiana, and I have not been to one of these in a long time because I'm normally buried in something on Thursday afternoon and forget. So, hello,
Great.
folks.
Thanks, Justin.
Hi.
Welcome. We'll go to Eli and then Ben.
Hello, my name is Eli. I'm a developer with Giant Rabbit. I'm in San Diego, California.
Thanks, Eli. Ben, and then Andy, if you're around.
Hey, my name is Ben. I'm also a developer at Giant Rabbit. I'm in Asheville, North Carolina, and yeah, just figured I'd show my face here because I'll be more active in the queues in the next couple of months.
Thanks, Ben.
Hi, I'm Andy Shillingford, um, backdrop enthusiast from the Cayman Islands. On leave today, so I'm happy to be able to join the meetings this afternoon. Good to see everyone.
Yeah, great. Welcome. Great to see you, Andy. All right, announcements and things of that nature. There's been a lot of activity. Tim sent out a mailer last night announcing a lot of different news. And also, we finally got the 1.30 blog post out. Yay, thank you. I think Luke and Tim both were involved in that process. So great to see that finally get out there into the open. Tim, you want to make it further announcements?
I suppose I'll just say, well, a reminder, domain access right after this meeting, but Backdrop Live is the big one. If you're not registered, please get registered. Anything you can do to help us spread the word, that would be great. Also, it would be great. We plan some backdrop for beginner sessions every backdrop live. Usually they're content types and fields, views, and layouts are the three. I added one on theming because I think that's also a beginner topic that there's always interested in. And usually we just plan these topics and then recruit volunteers to help present them. And I'm hoping to not have to present them all myself. So if anybody is able to do one of those, if you need help, I can talk to you about it. I think we have some recorded versions of it. You can watch how people have done it in the past. I think if you're somebody who would like to present, but always feel like you just don't know what to present on, like just taking a basic topic like views is kind of a good way to get started, because it's something that we all, pretty much all of us, know really well, and you don't have to learn anything new. But we always get new people at Backdrop Live that for whom that is valuable. We've had people that had never built that are active come to Backdrop Live, but have never built their own content type before. They've showed up at these before. So there are real beginners that do show up, and they need your help. So please let me know if you're willing to do one of those. I think I'll leave it at that. If there's any questions, ping me. I think we'll talk a little more about Backdrop Live at the user group meeting.
Great. Thanks, Tim.
Yep.
Let's see. There was something else here. I'll just carry on. We have an open contrib application. Egmont opened a application just yesterday, so that would be great to get that contrib application reviewed. And in the world of contrib, I didn't give an update on new contrib modules last week, so I'll recap them now. There's been 13 new projects released in the last 2 weeks, which is incredible. Some of them look like they're related to domain module, which Tim might be filling us in on next meeting. But there's, okay, running through them here. We've got UberCart field attributes, comment fragment, domain views, domain path, domain menu access, and also domain registration. There's site help, content taxonomy, node CSS, discount coupons, views RSS, iTunes elements, get ID3 module, and entity forms. Folks have been busy.
I was involved in a couple of those domain modules, but there's some that I wasn't involved in, so I'm pleased and hadn't noticed.
Yeah,
Cool to
maybe
see.
the peripheral modules are already starting to come on that
Yes.
are dependent on domain module. So
Right. We don't actually have a release of domain yet, but we've got a bunch of beta releases of associated modules. And
yeah, that's funny.
Yeah, I think we might actually release domain in a few days. I think we're pretty close, so hopefully.
Yeah, lots of great stuff. All right. So that's it for the contrib updates and announcements and the introductions. We'll kind of get into our topics for today. We didn't actually have any submitted. We did have a couple more people join though, so if you do have something you'd like to tack on, then start thinking about that. But I'll go through the issues that have been on my radar recently, and I'll start sharing my screen. 1 second. Okay. Here we are. So very exciting in the last week, right after last week's meeting, we had the Fast Token Browser issue get merged into Core. So this will be in the 1.30 release, which is a great enhancement. In the end, it ended up looking a lot nicer, and it is much faster than the current token browser. So this is a very nice enhancement that makes it so that the token browser loads a lot faster, and then it drills down into the tokens via AJAX requests one layer at a time. I mentioned this last week that this is an interesting thing in that it enables the display of recursive token handling. We actually have always had the support for recursive tokens inside of the token API. Like if you nest, into a node, into a reference, and then into that nodes, and then into another reference, you can drill down in the current token API, but the UI could not support it because the UI loaded all of the tokens all at once. And so if you ended up had any recursion there, or even if you had a lot of references, the token browser would get really unwieldy. And so this now enables the UI to match the capabilities of the API. So that's pretty great. Yeah, thanks to Herb for taking this issue on. So let's see, that issue. Martin, Yorkshire Pudding is often in these issues or in these meetings, and he's been working on this simplified array syntax for settings.php. And this is really close. I think that, yeah, it's all been committed. I made some suggestions. Looks like he approved them. So this could use some review from someone other than myself, since now I've started contributing to this pull request. But yeah, it looks really good. The short of it is that we're generally replacing the default database connection in settings.php from this string format to this array format. And the primary reason why we're doing that is because the username and password were difficult to enter correctly because they needed to be URL encoded, and that was not obvious from the syntax. And so people would put special characters in their passwords, and then they couldn't get their sites to connect because they needed to URL encode the special characters. And it totally backfired and made what we thought was going to be simple into something complicated. So it also has the benefit of eliminating these stray separate variables like what the database char set is or the database prefix is, and just puts them all into one array. So yeah, that's the change here. I think that this is in good shape. Did anybody have any comment there? Sounded like somebody might have unmuted.
Oh, it wasn't me who unmuted, but did you say that's coming in the next release, or when's that coming in?
It'll probably be in 1.30.
Okay.
The old syntax still totally works. This is just the default behavior in settings.php will change so that new installs will start using this array syntax. And yeah, this
Got it, okay.
this array syntax doesn't work yet. So there is also the longer array syntax. Let's look at yeah. So we have this documentation page, which will need to be updated slightly as well. But there is this array syntax, which is Drupal 7's array syntax, which also works currently and will continue to work after this change as well. So the big difference is that this is databases, plural. And when it's database as a single array, then it will define basically, you'll just be able to skip this default business and then specify the values underneath here. So that's why it's called the simplified array syntax, because the comprehensive array syntax also exists, and it can also still be used. So yeah, now we have 3 array syntaxes, or 3 database syntaxes. We got the string, we got the simplified array, and then we have the complex array. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like it was up until we ran into the password needing to be encoded, which became more common. I think somehow that people started using more randomized passwords instead of ones they actually type out. And also the specifying of the character set when emojis started becoming the default. That's emoji support started becoming the default. That was something we didn't really foresee either when we first introduced this back in Backdrop 1.0.
Cool. Thanks for clarifying, because I see that we're using the databases one in ours, so it shouldn't break anything when that's released.
Nope. In the end, if you use either of the simplified syntaxes, the string or the new simplified array that we're going to introduce, that only matters for the reading of settings.php. And as soon as settings.php is read in, it converts everything to the comprehensive, complicated syntax internally. So all of Backdrop uses the big databases array when it checks the database values rather than these simplified syntaxes. And that's part of what makes it compatible with 777 logic and concepts, is that it's actually the same format as 777. It's just that this is simplified for the purpose of typing in settings.php. Okay, let's see. Next up is this link field issue. Laren and RGPiano, I believe, have been working on this issue. Yeah. And I posted a review of this just before this meeting. But conceptually, what this does is that link field, see if there's a screenshot in here anywhere. Link field provides obviously a field for for making links, but it also provides a form API element. But that form API element isn't usable outside of when you're using it as a field like on a node or a different type of entity. And so this makes it so that link fields can be used anywhere in any generic form and not have to be associated with a field. RGPiano very nicely added test coverage or the start of test coverage to this pull request. It functionally seems to work really well, but the feedback that I posted on is that it's like 95% decoupled from field API, but there's still like one or two places where it's still referencing the field instance. And I'm like, oh, that's so close. Like if the entire point of this issue is to decouple field API from form API for this particular field, then we should go 100% and not leave like one lingering tiny little part of field API being used inside of the form API element. So let's see if there's something here to show you folks. Yeah, so this is generally like when using it inside of forms, what it will start to look like. That you'll be able to specify pound type equals link field, and then there's the form API property link field options that you can set all of the link field capabilities, like if the URL is required, whether the title is required, whether there's the ability to specify custom classes, whether there's the ability to specify custom title, all of that capability that link field does, all tied up into nice one tidy form API element. So that's coming along, but still needs a little bit of work. Let's see. I think that those are the big issues that I had to discuss today. A lot of these are actually pulled in from last week, so I don't have more to discuss on those things. So anyway, that's the recap of the things that have been on the top of my mind in the world of Backdrop. But yeah, we're now more than half an hour early from the end of the meeting. So if anybody has any other topics or thoughts or things they want to talk about, I'll open the floor here.
Are you sure you want to do that?
Maybe.
I have a minor one.
Yeah, let's go to Andy first, and then we'll come back to you, Luke. How's that sound?
Good idea.
Oh, sorry, Luke. Did you? I thought you were just commenting. If you want to go ahead, that's fine. No problem.
No, go ahead, Andy.
Right. So I just posted this on Zulip just now. We were looking at the what do you call it? The Bootstrap Lite theme, Bootstrap 5 Lite theme, and realized that the three cards on the front of Backdrop, they're not responsive in any other theme apart from Basis, because Basis has custom CSS to make them responsive. And that's because the views.css only put in some Bootstrap CSS for wide screens, but there's nothing in Views CSS for smaller screens. And I was wondering, would we want to add something in Views CSS now to deal with that? Because if you're noticing, in only basis, if you make the screen smaller in any of the other core themes, the cards stay as 3 columns. They don't respond into a single column. But I don't know if we want to change Views CSS. We've had discussions about not changing CSS so we don't mess up people's existing sites. So just wondering, what could we do about that now, or should we just leave it?
Is this views.css? Is this actually being provided by Views module, or where is its origin?
Yeah, I think it's Views. I believe it's Views module. Yeah. Yeah, let me see. I got it open on my desktop. I believe it is. Yeah, views.css is core modules, views CSS, views.css. There's a few CSS lines for views grid, views view grid.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Because it's actually,
Yes, for the
I
grid.
see.
I should have mentioned
It's for the
Yeah.
grid.
Yeah, the grid. I should have mentioned that. Yeah, so we only have CSS for grid at full screen size, but we don't have any CSS for what happens when you reduce the screen size.
Oh,
So-
interesting.
So our grids are not responsive. Views grids are not responsive out of the box.
It would be hard to do it in core though, right? Because you don't know that all the themes have the same breakpoints. Or do they?
Yeah. No,
Right? So it seems like it should be at the theme level, not in views.
yeah, I think we probably discussed this when we first added the responsive grid, or I can't remember, the CSS based grid instead of using tables to views. But that's a great question, and yeah, I think Ben's got a good point there, that historically may have been the reason why there's only desktop styling, is because we don't know where they're going to break. That's kind of vaguely what I'm remembering.
All right,
So
that makes
yeah,
sense, I guess. Just leave it.
yeah, but that
Leave it to the
that
theme.
means as far as like Bartik and other themes go, yeah, that you would need to specify that on a theme level basis, or on a per view instance basis would probably be, because it also really depends, like where that view is actually being displayed. Like on the home page, for example, it's going to be the full width, but you could use CSS grid in other places where you don't have the full width of a page, and that would adjust where your breakpoints need to be.
So we'll leave it, yeah?
Yeah, I think leave it might be might be what we're coalescing around, at least in this discussion. Okay. Anything else, Andy? Okay.
No, that's it for me, sorry.
All right. Yeah, Luke, what have you got?
All right, I've got almost 10,000 unread messages in backscroll on Zulip, so I am, completely out of touch with probably lots and lots of things that I care about but don't know that are there. But more specifically, I know that when we released the latest version, there seemed to be it seems like we're at the point of considering like Backdrop 2.0-ish type issues of, other than, fixing bugs, like what are actual things that we want to do? And I don't want to miss that conversation because I'm super duper interested in that and I'm not paying attention. And so, like, is that happening? Is that a thing that's coming up soon?
Yeah, that's a great question. I had been thinking about Backdrop 2 a couple months ago. I was suggesting even that we should fork for Backdrop 2 soon, perhaps even imminently. because our announcement about the only announcement we've made about Backdrop 2 is that it won't come out before a certain date, and that before a certain date is January 2025, which is now right around the corner.
Yeah.
But we haven't made an announcement about Backdrop 2 when it will come out. We've only said that the earliest possible date that we would ever even consider is January 2025. At this point, I don't think that it's, the release is anywhere in the near future, but the creation of the branch probably is. And then what that looks like for what's in Backdrop 2, TBD,
Yeah.
like Drupal, we are planning on making the 2.x release be mostly about removing stuff rather than having added stuff. So there's a slew of to-dos and deprecated stuff in Backdrop 1.x, and 2.x would largely be about removing the deprecated stuff out of 1.x. And then there would be a point where new features would stop going into 1.x, and then they'd only start going into 2.x. And so the 2.0 release wouldn't necessarily have any shiny big features. It would just remove all of the deprecated stuff. Now, from a marketing perspective, I can understand that 2.x or 2.0 should include some major new capability
Yeah.
because it needs to have something that gets people excited. And the main thing I'd like to see that would make it be like 2.0 worthy would be a new front end theme.
Right. Right. All right. Well, look, just to kind of fit in there. So you mentioned marketing, and I mean that's what I swoop in and do sometimes. But like there's two parts of that. There's the outbound marketing, advertising, which is what most people think of as marketing. But my like thing, my driving force is inbound marketing. It's like product management stuff. And just my experience with like lots of things like this is that a lot of times strategic decisions get made without like a lot of recognition that they're being made, and there's never like a chance to decide like should we do something until it's too late to not do it. So my thought is to establish, if there isn't one, maybe there's one, but establish a backlog somewhere, and then we have some of that's like kicking around various, but sort of more officially like here's things we haven't started yet. We haven't decided to do them yet. We're thinking about doing it, and we should, discuss that if we actually got this, would we like it, and is it worth trying to do? Um, I'll I'll just take one like 30 more seconds because like there's things that I was sort of disappointed with 15 years ago when I got into Drupal, and I was like, all right, well, this is crappy, but they're gonna fix this in 6 months, so it'll be fine. And like they're still there and they're still in Backdrop and they've been there forever. And I'd like to at least talk about them and see if we're doing things because we want to, or like because we haven't gotten around to deciding whether or not we want to do them.
Yeah, do you have any examples?
Sure. I'll throw out one like possible thing. I was actually explaining this on site at a client yesterday about Drupals and backdrops menus. Where things are in the menus is of course decided by the module writer, who like I think I'm gonna give it this path, and so it shows up there. And so you know our menus with Drupal and backdrops are just this chaotic mess of functionality that has like historical reference, but isn't the way anybody would have put it together. It, you know, in both cases, for example, there's a top level menu item for setting the theme, which is something that every site does once ever. Why is that taking up 1/8 of the menu bar? Uh, just stuff like that, right? So I think my deal, as I think most of people know, is I'm doing a simplified Drupal thing. I did my intro to look for stuff like that, to look for things like that. And with Drupal, I'm shouting into the wind, but here, like we're all here, like we could potentially actually make real progress on some of these things. And I wanted to suggest that we should at least consider doing that.
Yeah. So this particular example is it's great because it does epitomize one of the things that we've learned through 10 years of maintaining backwards compatibility since Backdrop 1.0 came out, is that we've gotten really good at providing new capabilities that we thought would have to be in Backdrop 2.0 that we're able to put in Backdrop 1.0 or 1.x, I should say. And rearranging menu items is one of those things. We've moved like 20 some menu items at least from one place to the other while maintaining compatibility in the 1.x branch. And stuff like, the permissions page, for example, used to be under users, but now it's under the configuration, account management permissions. And so I'm not actually sure that was a good move, honestly, because it's a lot harder to find than it used to be. But we did put it into like the conceptually, relevant place. Yeah, we have we leave the old menu item in place, and in hook menu we use I can't remember what it's called. It's like menu deprecated redirect or something like that, where it logs something to Watchdog when you use the old path, but then it redirects you to the new location. And so that's one of the things that in 2.x we've got all of those old menu paths that we would go through and we would remove them all because they in theory haven't been used in a long time already. But yeah, something like that, like we actually could do in 1.x, and that's possible. It's just that yeah, we would also need to have the the backwards compatibility redirects. 2.0 does give us the potential to introduce real breaking changes, but we'd really want to minimize them. Like providing the transitional period where we provide a deprecated, redirect or something like that in 1.x and then remove it in 2.x would really be the route we want to go for this kind of rearrangement anyway, unless there was some reason why we needed to do it in 2.x and couldn't do it in 1.x at all.
Yeah, yeah. All right. Well. So first, it's not like I'm anxious to break stuff. That's definitely not my driving thing. And the many things is one of like 20 things. And
Mhm.
if I was to like send out my list of like the 20 things I think we can change, it would look total madness if you're not expecting it. So I was basically just looking for like when would be a good time for me to throw you my list of 20 giant things I'd like to see changed.
Well, I would encourage you to go ahead and make them if they or maybe find them. I'm looking at we do have an issue tracking branch branch in the issue queue 2.x-future. And there are 75 issues in it. Also, curiously, there's already 10 closed issues in the 2.x future branch because sometimes we move stuff into 2.x future and then either we figured out we could have already done it or we figure out we're not going to do it. And so it gets closed, even though there's not a 2.x branch.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
I mean, my thought of the features is if they're in the backlog, to start the conversation, start evaluating, think about whether we want them before we actually do them,
oh
and
yeah,
and then
totally.
and then we could probably, I mean, I doubt if there's any of them that couldn't be implemented, in the current branch. And then 2.0 becomes this marketing event because besides the technical thing of, dropping the backwards thing, you get to make a big press release and, do whatever you can for all that.
Yep. Yeah, and getting it just also to there's huge marketing benefits to 2.x. There's also some there's some risk, but honestly, after 10 years of supporting Backtop 1.x, like I don't think people are too worried about our commitment towards backwards compatibility.
Yeah.
But we do also need to hedge that with a continued commitment to yes, backdrop releases are long-lived and 1.x will stick around for a long time. But also, upgrading to 2.x should be the easiest upgrade between major versions that has ever existed in the entire history of the backdrop and before that Drupal project. Like this should be like it should make should just be so easy because that's really what we're shooting for here. That but in order to do that, like we have some work to do. Like we need to make it so that our modules can specify their major version dependency like in a way that they can run on Backdrop 1 or 2. Because right now, if the logic in Backdrop would be like, oh, it's still based on Drupal type logic of the old Drupal logic, Drupal 7 logic of it can only run on one major version at a time. And modules should be able to run on multiple major versions because pretty much everything should still be Backdrop 2 compatible. And perhaps in the future that would be Backdrop 3 compatible, and a module can just run on all three major versions of Backdrop because the APIs are really long lived in Backdrop. And the kinds of things we're talking about changing, the deprecated functionality, they're not at this point, they're not like world changing API changes. It's stuff like we want to be able to change our CSS, and it's like, and have it not break people that have sub-themed basis, for example, like that kind of stuff. Yeah. Anyway, yeah. Do you have any other thoughts or things to opine about, Luke?
Like dozens, but I can, put them off until the time comes.
Looking at our list here, yeah, we'd probably remove Bartik in Backdrop 2. It's time for Bartik to go to bed.
I'll give you one more, and this will both strike terror and warm your technologist's heart. I would love for Backdrop 2.0 to be impossible to get a white screen of death. I would like you to be able to go and like delete random configs and load them and swap out the database and just change all sorts of stuff, and you'll never get there's a problem. It'll just something that's like, oh, the config file's not, why don't you go fix that? Just some kind of like softer landing because, a huge portion of our potential audience never gets past those barriers. They pull in and then something cracks and they go away. Like they're easily scared off. It only takes one of those things and they're almost certain to hit them. So it sounds hard, right? Like I'm not suggesting that's easy, but that's the kind of thing I'd love to see. I'd love to dream about.
You might be dreaming for a while, Luke. I mean,
oh, come on, can't you have like an if statement, like if fucked, put up friendly message instead of like, randomly doing something?
Oh, maybe, but I don't know. Like, I mean, there's so many things like a syntax error. PHP just literally can't operate, and neither can the application. And so there's nothing you can do because
there's no like try catch that can like catch them.
Not. I mean, a syntax error. No, it's literally like it just can't run, and the application has no ability. But yeah, I mean, if it's a recoverable error, then yeah.
Like say the database is down. I mean, can't we have it so that instead of just going, it like says if the database is not there, do this like predictable thing that will work okay.
Yeah, it's a big task, and again, not something that's Backdrop 2.0 dependent. Wherever we can do better error handling and catching, like that's not a 2.0 necessity, or it doesn't necessitate a branch to do that. I don't think.
No.
At least the minor,
but it's a big change.
improvements.
It'd be a lot of work, and it's only worth it if we decide that it's worth putting a lot of work into. So that's why I kind of want to throw out the idea before actually proposing it. Like, well, what about this?
It seems like it'd be easier to do that on to find some common errors where that happens first, rather than because it's too broad at this point to figure out like how to handle every single case, right?
Yeah.
But if there were
Yeah.
some common ones that people run into, then we could start fixing those.
Yep. Agreed. Yeah, the
Can we
common
use
ones are the big thing.
can we use telemetry for that? Like if there's a white screen of death situation, it sends off a message in bottle like this is how I died, and we could track those.
It's an interesting idea. So if it's possible to log, it's already getting logged in Watchdog as a database, into the database. There's reasons why we wouldn't want to have that be automatic though, because often crash like backtrace includes a lot of information about the environment in which it's running, like, custom code, the name of the modules. It can even include like function arguments and stuff like that. So it can
Yeah, I'm not.
leak a lot of data.
I'm not suggesting we tweet the content of Watchdog. I'm just saying, like, is there any way? And particularly, it's most important for people that have never heard of Watchdog and will never know it's Watchdog. Like just something that on installation says, you know, like you did with like, you know. Mac products. There's a lot. Like Apple says, if is it okay to send back information about the thing?
Yeah.
You don't have to have anywhere close to constant coverage. If like 2% of the viewers check that and we get like some feedback as like, here's how I died, it provides us something just that wouldn't have to contain detailed information at all, just that it happened.
Yeah. It's something like that is possible. But of course, then the information we would have, like we might be able to see that, tens of thousands of sites were all getting this particular category of error, but we wouldn't have the details about how it was happening. But, that could still be valuable in some way
Yeah.
to kind of
If
track that.
if we got that kind of thing, if we got like, you know, 10,000 sites failed from this mysterious thing, then that becomes an issue. Like, okay, let's figure out what's doing that. Let's
Mhm,
ask.
mhm.
Let's try to reproduce it.
Zoom just died for me and it didn't tell me why. And it came back.
Yeah, it's kind of like what people were like Ben had been saying that there's it's hard to capture it like at a global level, same as like an operating system. Like if it beach balls or if it like fully like craps out and locks up, like there's no ability to write a log at that juncture. But if there's smaller parts of it that crash, then our ability to log that is a lot better. Um,
I
and
know WordPress has a thing. I don't know if this is a thing everywhere or how this works, but it sometimes we have at least one site that'll send us an email if a plugin causes a fatal error.
hmm,
But for some sites, that could be a lot of messages,
yeah,
unfortunately.
yeah.
I mean, could you build it into module invoke all? Rather than like just go on to the next module, have some sort of like last module, were you happy? Was anything wrong?
Well, I don't know. I mean, it's a goal that we should be pursuing in any case, like reduce the amount of critical errors that occur. But yeah, how we approach them, I don't think that there's a global solution, at least that I can think of, that
Yeah,
that would be able to do that.
it's tough because even that WordPress example, right? They tell you that there was an error, but they don't tell you what the person was doing to cause that error, right? So it's
Mhm.
like it's kind of not, I don't know that it's that useful.
If I had one, if you could just give me like the database is not there and have that be something other than I've died. Like if the database is not there, let it write its last will and testament and tell the world what happened.
Yeah, it should do that already. And maybe
I think it does do that if it can't connect to the database. Doesn't it show you an error that says can't connect to the database?
yeah,
Or
it
no?
uses the maintenance page and has a nice little message. It should at least. Uh,
All right.
yeah, and then the alternative to that is, and this is an improvement that's been in there for a long time, is like if the database hasn't been configured at all, then it takes you to the installer, which was a huge just improvement. Instead of showing you the just white page that crapped out, it's like, oh, there's clearly no database configured because it's using the default, and so it takes you to install.php to like get it installed for you. That's been in Backdrop for a very long time.
Yeah.
What else was I thinking of? Oh, um, this is a topic that it's another 1.30 feature that's in the works right now, and that's the ability to restore your site after it crashes as part of update.php. That update.php will start this in this feature is in progress. Update.php will as a part of the process, that first page where it's like back up your database and your config and stuff like that. Well, we're adding into update.php an additional step that just makes the backup for you and saves it into a directory so that we don't have to tell people make a backup. Instead, there's a step that is literally makes the backup. And if the update should fail for some reason, then there's a mechanism to restore the backup. And that restore mechanism works even with a totally broken database, even with a totally broken config, so that there's a way to get out of a catastrophic update failure. But
Yeah.
not
Yes.
probably not easily, but at least it's in a way better position than oops, we broke your database and you didn't make a backup because you're not that experienced and now you're just totally hosed.
Yeah. 100%. Like exactly that kind of, and that's definitely that kind of thing is hugely helpful. Uh, and
Yeah. Yeah, and
more of
that
that.
that that dovetails into our ultimate goal of automatic updates, where the route we're pursuing right now is that there's an automatic updates module for Drupal 7 that does in-place updates. So and you can in-place update Backdrop core right now. You just go to update status, and if the new version of core is available and your file system is writable, it can self-update right now. But you need to manually go to update.php. I mean, it walks you through the process, but you as a user have to go through update.php and run it. And as we move towards uh, doing porting the Drupal 7 automatic updates, which basically is a really extensive pre-flight checker. It like checks to make sure your file system is writable, that your modules aren't hacked, that the checksums are all matching the original modules. Like it just does a bunch of stuff to like check to make sure, well, automatic update should probably work. And then it does the replacement in place. And that's a great a great starting point, but it never provided the what if something goes wrong alternative, which is what this capability to add backups will do as part of update.php. So there'll be a good complementary set of features where better pre-flight checking and the ability to run updates on cron is what automatic updates module does, and we're planning on integrating that. And then we're integrating the parts of backup and migrate that have the ability to backup and restore after a failure. So that will work really nicely and give people a lot more confidence when they turn on automatic updates that there's a way to recover from a bad automatic update.
I can't tell you how happy that made. Like, yes, exactly. Perfect. More of that.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm
Wonderful.
excited. I'm excited about this. The automatic update thing, it seems achievable. And from my experience maintaining backdrop websites that I just barely care about, like my personal blog that I post a blog post every couple of years on. Like it will be more secure and more safe if I turn on automatic updates and just don't and you know and have an ability to restore it than if I do what I do right now, which is I update it every couple of years.
Right.
So yeah, even for my own personal use as a you know professional web developer, that's cobbler's kids have no shoes, right? I don't bother with my own stuff that doesn't matter. I work with what I'm paid to do,
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, but I think there's a lot of people that are in that category, and I would love for Backdrop to be a de facto choice for a low maintenance option, because the maintenance cost of just like, I just want to blog and I don't really want to have to deal with the maintenance, is the reason a lot of people choose like flat file websites and GitHub pages and things of that nature, where it's just like, I just don't want to have to deal with the maintenance. But it's also less convenient for me to operate. But if I'm only operating it a couple times a year, then the inconvenience of maintenance can outweigh the editorial ease of use. And I'd like an easy interface, and I'd like it to be easy to maintain. But right now it seems like it's a choice of one or the other.
Yep.
Yeah. So that's where we have the most opportunity to improve, is lowering that maintenance cost.
All right. See you in the backlog. Where's the backlog? All right. We'll figure that out.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's wrap it up for today. Does anybody have any closing thoughts? Okay. All right. Well, thank you everybody for joining us today. Thank you for the great discussion. Luke, always have some ideas. Yes, Backdrop Live next week. Man, I can't believe that that's right around the corner. But yeah, sign up, events.backdropcms.org. And yeah, we'll see everybody. Oh, we won't see people next week because it will literally be Backdrop Live next week. So this meeting will not happen. So anyway, we'll see everybody next week at Backdrop Live, and hope everybody has a great week until then. See you later.